Hi, welcome to the Digital Portfolio Management Academy series. This is our second session. We're going to focus on enterprise and personal portfolios. This is meant to be around answering frequently asked questions that myself and the team often get around the difference between the two portfolios, how they should be used, and who they're for. My name is Caitlin Morse. I'm a product manager for Digital Portfolio Management, and I'm excited to be able to share this content with you. So let's dive in. This is our safe harbor notice. There may be some forward-looking statements, and so please don't make any buying decisions based on what we share in the presentation. As I mentioned, there are two types. So we have personal portfolios, which you can see here on the left, and we have enterprise portfolios, which you can see here on the right. For personal portfolios, they are created and shared by individual users. So they typically will create personal portfolios that are specific to their area of ownership or responsibility, or possibly their interest. So what I mean by interest is they may be dependent, like the services and apps they own may be dependent on other services and apps. And so they want the visibility into the status of those services to understand any potential impacts. So there's a lot of flexibility in how these can be used, but that really is the core intention. They can include a combination of business applications, services, and application services. So there's really no limitation, could be specific to one type or a combination of all of those. We also have different access. So when a user comes in who has the DPM manager role, they can create their own personal portfolio using this button right here. It's a step-by-step guided experience, really easy to use. They'll use that to create and edit their personal portfolios. And then once a portfolio is created or in the process of creating it, they can share the portfolio with other members of their team or other key stakeholders. They'll provide either the editor or viewer role to those individuals. They can also share personal portfolios with groups. So any user group that has the DPM manager role can be selected, and that personal portfolio can then be shared directly with all the individuals that are within that particular group. So it makes it a little bit easier instead of having to individually add all those people. So there's different ways to get access. The editing and viewing access is simply to the portfolio. It's not to the business application or services themselves. Edit access to those records requires the specific roles for that. So I just want to make that clarification. When it comes to enterprise portfolios, now this is more about the organization's defined hierarchical structure of their services or their applications that are really provided. You know, what are we as an organization delivering? And it's meant to be more of a holistic representation. It's something that every user with a DPM manager role will be able to see, not only the structure and what's in the portfolio, but also these key data points. So it's not something, you know, that's specific to a user. This is a shared view, shared understanding. And there are three specific types. Service portfolios, those come from the service portfolio management module. We also have business application and application service portfolios, and those are created in the DPM enterprise portfolio tables. None of the enterprise portfolios are actually created in DPM. DPM is intended to be a visualization experience for those portfolios. It's not like the personal portfolio, again, where you can create and view in the workspace. This is a nice comparison view. I like it because it does point-by-point differences and similarities. I'm not going to go through everyone specifically. I'll just kind of talk through some of the key points. Starting with the personal portfolios, again, those are created by users who have a DPM manager role, and they can create one to many personal portfolios. There's really no limitation there. We will automatically create a personal portfolio for the logged in user the first time they access that personal portfolio module. What we do is we look at the user to see if they are listed as the owner or, you know, the IT application owner for the service, the business application, or the app services, and we'll build that personal portfolio for them. If they're not, that's fine. They'll be able to then easily create their own view, again, using that step-by-step guided experience. On the enterprise portfolio side, that's created by a user who has a particular admin role, so either service portfolio or the DPM admin role. They can create one-to-many. So there's really no limitation on the number of enterprise portfolios that an admin can create. And there's also no limitation on how many of each type that they create. When it comes to personal portfolios, they can include a combination of CI classes. The CIs that we support within DPM include services, business applications, and application services. We don't include other types of classes, so it is limited. One thing I forgot to mention is the application services does also include dynamic CI groups. So that will be what can be included in a personal portfolio. It has a flat structure, so there's no hierarchy, and a single CI can exist in many personal portfolios. So you could add the same service to multiple portfolios. There's no limitation there. On the enterprise portfolio side, they are specific to a certain class. So again, the three types that we support are service portfolios, business application portfolios, and application services. It is structured hierarchically. So you can see that kind of nested taxonomy breakdown, and a single service or app can only belong to one portfolio. Right now, the reason for that is around a technical limitation we're facing. And so we are looking at ways to enable that in future. That's a request we get quite a bit, and we do want to provide that. And so that's something that's in our backlog that we're working on. At the moment, a single service or app can only exist in one enterprise portfolio at a time. That portfolio then again is visible to all users who have the DPM manager role. And then the other aspect of enterprise portfolios, which is a really cool feature, is our reporting. So you can map a set of key metrics to a portfolio, and you can view the breakdown of those metrics throughout the entire portfolio. So you can identify your low performing services or apps, as well, of course, as your high performing, and it can help you make portfolio rationalization decisions. At the moment, we don't have any aggregated reporting on personal portfolios, but we are going to continue to invest in the personal portfolios and hopefully be able to provide that in the future, so that we can give a good picture of the status kind of across all those different types of solutions in a portfolio, a personal portfolio, and give the owner more insight kind of into all those different pieces as a whole. Considerations for when to use each type. The portfolios are meant to be used in tandem, and they are for different intentions. So when we think about enterprise portfolios, I think this is really best represented as something for a senior stakeholder. This is a feature that we get a lot of excitement around and interest, I should say, because it gives a good high-level view of key metrics around performance of that portfolio. And so that is, I think, a game changer for a lot of our customers and a real area of interest. On the personal portfolio side, I think one of the biggest benefits is the ability to put different types, different services and apps in the same portfolio and think about those together and delivering on a particular outcome. That's one of the few UIs where you really can see all those pieces come together, again, in kind of a shared outcome. There are no limitations on having to use one or the other, or having to use both in order to get started with DPM. So you could start with an enterprise portfolio. You might already have a service portfolio built out. If you do, that'll automatically show up in the workspace. If you don't, that's not something that you have to have in order to use it. The personal portfolios is a great way for the service and application owners to get started with the product, to build the portfolios that matter to them, and to be able to access those particular solutions. Again, there's no requirements around what to use first. I will say that oftentimes when I speak with customers, they are focused on getting that enterprise portfolio set up first to then roll out a proof of concept or a proof of value. Because again, I do think that does bring a ton of value to their organization. That is something to consider. In terms of using the different types of enterprise portfolios, I've gotten this question a lot more now recently since we've added the business app and app service types. When we first delivered DPM, we only had service types. And the reason why we did that was because we had the service portfolios coming from service portfolio management, but we got so many requests from customers around wanting to see those aggregated metrics for their business applications or for their application services. Frankly, different customers are focused on different types of, for the broader term, solution. If you are a customer who's more application oriented, you have your applications defined, you're thinking about your organization in terms of applications, then the enterprise portfolios feature now supports you in building out those portfolios and being able to view those metrics. Again, same thing from the services side. If you are an organization that has defined both, you have your service portfolio and you have your registry of applications, then you can use the enterprise portfolios to see both. You can build out those two types and you can start to see and assess different types of metrics at different levels, of your portfolios, or you could use the same. So there's tons of flexibility. You don't have to use all the types. You don't have to use any of the types. You could use one or multiple. There's really no limitations there. The intention is just greater flexibility to meet you where you're at. And so that's why we introduced those other types. And that's why there are those 3 different versions. And I will say that we have gotten a lot of excitement around introducing that because some of our customers told us they really couldn't use that module, the enterprise portfolio module at all, because they didn't have their service portfolios yet. That's just something to consider about the types. And again, there's really no right or wrong way. I hope you find that information valuable and useful. Okay, so now we're going to jump over to the actual instance so you can see the enterprise portfolio module in action. We ship enterprise technology, enterprise business applications, and enterprise application services as sample portfolio structures that you can explore and play with. Again, if you're not familiar or comfortable with creating your own portfolio yet, this tree here shows you the taxonomy and the breakdown. Once you see an icon, that means that you're at a service or business application or app service level. You'll notice that we also show the child offerings. And then we have the performance snapshot with critical needs attention items. This is configurable, and these metrics are also configurable. This is, again, something that we provide to you out of the box as a starting point that you can then modify to better suit your purposes. One of the main questions that I get is around how to structure your enterprise portfolio. What should be the taxonomy and what's the approach? That question is incredibly hard to answer because it really depends on the industry that you're in. It depends on what you're defining and how you want to define it. And it also depends on what metrics you want to track or essentially why you want to create the portfolio. Typically, I suggest thinking about reports that you're already creating for your leadership and thinking about how you're representing either your services or your applications, and see if that's something that you can replicate in the structure. There are industry best practices that you can take advantage of, and there are ones that are published publicly. There are standards that are, I think, you have to pay for them. So there is the TBM, the Aptio's TBM has a taxonomy that many customers I speak with are using. That's because it's very much centered around financials. So how you're basically allocating money, through your, spending for different services or again, for applications. So I think the TBM is most appropriate for service portfolios. There are also industry published taxonomies for like the financial sector, for healthcare, for higher education. And so those can be found through searches. And then you can assess whether that matches how you're thinking about what you own. One thing that I do suggest that you steer away from is creating a structure based on your organizational structure. The reason I say that is because that changes so often. And so you'll be spending a lot of time modifying the taxonomy, and that can be a little cumbersome to have to constantly stay on top of. So just something to consider. But again, there's really no right or wrong way, which likely isn't that helpful, but you can, take a look at what we have for demo data. You can, again, check some of those industry standards and best practices that are shared, that are public, see if those will work for you. And then the other one, which sometimes I'll use just to kind of for fun, just to sort of see, is you can use open AI or like generative AI type of tools like Chat GPT, see what it comes up with for you, just as a starting point. It could be an interesting test or an interesting approach to then further refining and modifying the structure to really match what you need and how your organization is wanting to report on your metrics. That is an overview of the different portfolios. We went into some of the different use cases and why we have those two separate types. We also talked a little bit about best practice and how to get started. I hope this provides some meaningful information for you and helps you along your journey with DPM. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.